Faces turned toward him in shock, and one by one they began to ask, "Is it I, Lord?" Their voices trembled with fear and disbelief as doubt crept into their hearts. Judas, his resolve hardened, but his guilt lingering, muttered, "Is it I, Master?" Jesus, with a piercing yet sorrowful look, replied, "You have said so." As the meal continued, Jesus took bread into his hands, broke it, and handed it to his disciples. "Take and eat. This is my body," he said, his voice steady and full of meaning. Then he took the cup, lifted it, and gave thanks before passing it to them. "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the new covenant, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." The room fell silent, the gravity of his words settling over them like a veil. Jesus instructed them, "Do this in remembrance of me." This act, simple yet profound, would become the cornerstone of the Christian faith, a moment of divine grace woven into the fabric of human history. Even as he spoke, the shadow of betrayal and the weight of the cross loomed ever closer. After the meal, Jesus led his disciples through the quiet streets of Jerusalem to the Garden of Gethsemane. The night was still, the air heavy with the scent of olive trees. With deep sorrow in his voice, he confided to Peter, James, and John, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." He withdrew to pray alone, falling to the ground, his agony so profound that his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the earth. "Father," he pleaded, "if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." In this moment, his humanity and divinity were laid bare. His willingness to embrace the Father's will despite the cost. Returning to his disciples, he found them sleeping, their weariness overtaking their resolve. "Could you not keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked gently. He withdrew again, praying with the same intensity, before finally rising, his face set with resolve. "The hour has come," he said. Suddenly, the stillness of the garden was shattered by the sound of clinking armor and hurried footsteps. An armed crowd, led by Judas, approached under the cover of night. The betrayer stepped forward, his face illuminated by flickering torchlight. "Hail, Master," he said, his voice devoid of sincerity. As he leaned in to greet Jesus with a kiss, a symbol of affection turned into a mark of betrayal. Jesus, his voice tinged with sadness, asked, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" His words cut through the chaos, filled with both sorrow and piercing truth. As the soldiers moved to seize him, Peter, in a surge of misguided loyalty, drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. "Put your sword back in its place," Jesus commanded, his voice firm yet calm. "For all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way?" Jesus reached out and touched the servant, healing his ear, a final act of compassion even in the face of betrayal. The soldiers then seized him, binding his hands as if he were a common criminal. The disciples, overcome with fear and confusion, scattered into the darkness, leaving Jesus alone to face his accusers. Dragged before the Sanhedrin, Jesus stood bruised yet resolute. The chief priests and elders hurled accusations, seeking false witnesses to condemn him. "Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God," they demanded, their voices filled with malice. Jesus replied, "If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I ask you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." "Are you then the Son of God?" they insisted, their question charged with venom. "You say that I am," Jesus declared, his words steady and unshaken. The high priest, enraged, tore his garments and shouted, "Blasphemy! Why do we need any more witnesses? You have heard it for yourselves. What do you think?" "He deserves to die," came the cry from the council, their verdict sealed by their hardened hearts. As dawn broke, Jesus was brought before Pilate, the Roman governor. The religious leaders, unwilling to let their plot falter, presented him as a political threat. "This man claims to be a king and stirs up rebellion against Caesar," they accused. Pilate, unimpressed by their zeal, turned to Jesus. "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You say so," Jesus replied calmly, his composure unbroken. Pilate, marveling at Jesus' restraint amidst the relentless accusations, found no fault in him. "I find no basis for a charge against this man," he declared. But the crowd, stirred up by the chief priests, demanded action. In an attempt to pacify them, Pilate offered a customary choice. "Whom do you want me to release to you? Barabbas, a murderer and insurrectionist, or Jesus, who is called the Christ?" "Barabbas!" the crowd roared, their voices unified in defiance. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" Pilate asked, his voice tinged with hesitation. "Crucify him!" they shouted, their hatred swelling to a deafening crescendo. "Why? What crime has he committed?" Pilate pressed, hoping to reason with them. But the crowd was unrelenting. "Crucify him!" Seeing that he was gaining nothing, Pilate symbolically washed his hands before the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said.